The United States is continuing to build up major military capabilities across the Middle East. Aircraft carriers, fighter jets, missile defense systems, and additional troops are being deployed in a way that increasingly looks like preparation for a potential conflict with Iran, possibly alongside Israel. Iran, however, is not surprised. Tehran expects an attack and is preparing as quickly as possible. The message from Iran's leadership has been direct. Revolutionary Guard Commander Mohammad Pakpour recently said, "Our fingers are on the trigger." Across the region, there is a growing sense that we may be approaching what some analysts are calling a fourth Gulf War. The first was between Iran and Iraq. The second and third involved the United States leading wars against Iraq in 1991 and 2003. This time, the focus is Iran. Compared to previous Gulf wars, the current U.S. military buildup is smaller, but it is still serious, and it would be more than enough to support a major confrontation, especially if Israel joins in. Many expect Israel to be directly involved in any future strike on Iran, potentially as early as mid-2025. In past conflicts, Israel often struck first and the U.S. followed. This time, the roles could be reversed, or they could repeat the same pattern. What is clear is that any future U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran would likely be far more aggressive than previous confrontations. That's because the objective now appears larger, not just containing Iran but weakening, or even removing the Iranian regime itself. Washington has tried to pressure Tehran into giving up its ballistic missile program through negotiations. Iran has completely rejected this. From Tehran's perspective, its missile program is non-negotiable and central to its national defense. Under the narrative of supporting the Iranian people, the United States could enter a war with Iran. But strategically, the goal would be to force Iran into submission. One of the most dangerous escalations would be targeting Iran's top leadership, particularly Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Such a move could trigger an uncontrollable regional response. So how destructive could a war with Iran actually be, especially for the global economy? In June 2025, Iran and Israel fought a brief but intense 12-day war. Just hours after a ceasefire was announced, Iranian missiles were launched toward northern Israel and intercepted. Israel responded by preparing a large-scale strike on Iran before pulling back at the last moment, instead carrying out a symbolic attack after U.S. intervention. During that war, the United States joined Israel in striking Iranian nuclear facilities. While the strikes caused serious damage, they did not permanently eliminate Iran's nuclear program, though they likely delayed it significantly. One notable feature of the conflict was Iran's decision not to directly involve its navy. Instead, Iran relied heavily on missiles and drones while holding back its most extreme option, closing the Strait of Hormuz. That option remains Iran's strongest deterrent. After the war, U.S. intelligence revealed that Iran had begun loading naval mines onto ships in the Persian Gulf. The mines were never deployed, but the signal was clear. Iran was prepared to escalate. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important waterways in the world. It is the only maritime chuku from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Around 20 million barrels of oil pass through it every day, along with roughly 20% of global liquefied natural gas exports. If Iran were to close the strait, the global consequences would be immediate. Iran would not attempt a conventional naval battle with the U.S. Navy. Instead, it would rely on asymmetric warfare, fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, submarines, and most importantly, naval mines. Mines are cheap, effective, and extremely difficult to clear. Iran is believed to possess thousands of them, and deploying them could shut down shipping for weeks or even months. However, closing the strait would also severely damage Iran's own economy. Over 85% of Iran's trade and around 90% of its oil exports rely on routes that pass through Hormuz. Alternative pipelines exist, but they can only handle a fraction of Iran's exports. In other words, closing the strait would be a last resort, almost suicidal option, likely used only if Iran feels its survival is directly threatened. But Iran would not be the only country affected. The Strait of Hormuz is critical for global energy markets. About a quarter of the world's seaborne oil trade and a fifth of global LNG exports pass through it. Around 80% of that energy is destined for Asia, particularly China, India, Japan, and South Korea. Most of this energy has no realistic alternative route. If Hormuz were closed, oil prices could surge dramatically. Major banks have warned of prices exceeding $110 or even $130 per barrel. Natural gas prices would spike as well. Those price increases would quickly reach consumers, especially in the United States, where gasoline prices could rise above $5 per gallon. With U.S. elections approaching, that would create serious political pressure in Washington. The U.S. could release oil from its strategic petroleum reserve, and China could do the same, but these are temporary measures, not long-term solutions. The most dangerous scenario goes even further. In a wider regional war, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz could be combined with disruptions in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait near Yemen. That would threaten global trade routes, the Suez Canal, and energy flows to Europe and Asia simultaneously. Such a scenario would be devastating for global markets, Middle Eastern economies, and international shipping. Whether the region moves toward that outcome depends on how far a future U.S.-Israeli confrontation with Iran escalates. So the key question is this: would regime change in Iran reduce tensions in the Middle East or risk triggering even greater instability? And if the answer is instability, do regional powers have any real ability to stop the United States and Israel from pushing the conflict that far? Let us know what you think.